Okay, the reading for this week is the next part in our series on pre-modern, medieval, early modern, and Meiji period Japanese civilization, culture, society, and so forth. Today we will be reading an excerpts from Codes of Merchant Houses, the Code of the Okaya House from 1836. Okay, so 1836 is in the latter part of the Tokugawa period. You remember the Tokugawa period follows the Sengoku Jidai and begins around 1600 and continues for 268 years or so until the Meiji, the overthrow of the Tokugawa Shogunate in 1868 and the beginning of the Meiji period and the inauguration of Japan's period of modernization, westernization, and so forth from 1868 on. So this is in 1836, 32 years before the Meiji Ishin or Meiji Restoration. And it has to do with the role of the merchants in society, right? And you remember that the traditional Confucian social hierarchy was the official ideology, official social structure in Tokugawa period, with the bushi class, the samurai on top, the shi, followed by the no, the peasants, followed by the artisans or ko, and followed by the sho at the bottom, theoretically at least, but then the sho, or the merchants, of course, gained increasing influence and power and wealth during this period, and eventually became the foundation for the modern bourgeoisie in the Meiji period. All right, introduction. Although merchants were accorded low social status in the Tokugawa order and the Confucian orthodoxy of the time, commerce, shō akinai is the other way to read that character, shō, commerce, thrived in early modern Japan. And early modern Japan, for those of you who don't know this terminology, early modern or kinsei in Japanese, simply refers to the Tokugawa period. Okay, so anything before that is either medieval or pre-modern or classical. Early modern is specifically kinsei or the Tokugawa period from 1600 to 1868. Early modern Japan, commerce thrived in early modern Japan. Beginning in the 17th century, merchant houses, and especially those of wealth and age, began issuing codes, essentially lists of instructions intended for later generations to follow. So this is one of those codes, one of the later ones written at the end of the Tokugawa period, toward the end of the Tokugawa period. These written codes echoed the military house codes that had a much longer history in Japan. The Okaya house was based in Nagoya, which is where I am right now, in central Japan, and had its origins trading in hardware. This code was written by Okaya Sanezumi, under whose leadership the house prospered in 1836. Okay, and this is the English translation here is taken from Sources of Japanese Tradition, Volume 2. I'll put the link to that book in the description below, along with the link to this PDF worksheet, which was compiled by somebody at Columbia University, which we're using in this class. All right, here are the codes of merchant houses. Excerpts from the Code of the Okaya House, 1836. Article 1. Remember your duties to your parents. So filial piety is the first article. We cannot distinguish between cause and effect unless we remember that our parents are the cause of our existence. Neither can we make filial piety the cause of our actions unless we remember the debt of gratitude we owe our parents. Okay, so the stress on Confucian virtue of xiao in Chinese, filial piety, oyakoko in Japanese. Honor your superiors is the next article. Everyone, young or old, should consider the distinctions between master and servant and between superior and inferior to be basic, and so honor those above him. So honor the hierarchy. Article 3, we skip. Article 4, instruct your descendants. Teach your children when they are young to lead pure lives. Teach them to obey their parents, to respect their elders, never to tell even a small lie, to move about quietly, never to neglect their work, to always be alert, never to walk about aimlessly, and never to dress or eat extravagantly. And Article 5, be content with your way, with a capital W, so the Dao. Samurai, bushi, study the martial arts and work in the government. That's their function. Farmers, no, after the shi, we have the no, right? The peasants are farmers. Farmers till their lands and pay their taxes. After the no, the farmers, we have the ko, the artisans. Artisans work at their family industries and pass on to their children the family traditions. And then after the Ko, we have the Sho, the merchants. Merchants have trading as their duty and must trade diligently and honestly. Each of the 4 classes has its own way, its own Tao. And that way is the true way. So the way of the Tao of the peasant is not the way of the bushi. The way of the bushi is not the way of the artisan, and so forth. And of course, this system will break down in the and be abolished in the Meiji period. So in a few decades, this will all come to an end. All right, and this was translated by Ramsayer, who's that Harvard professor who's in a bit of trouble these days and been all over the news for his article on the Ianfu Mondai, on the Ianfu, I can't think of the English word for Ianfu, the service girls. Hold on. Comfort women is the usual translation for Ianfu. They're sexual slaves that were employed or forced into sexual slavery during World War II, and he wrote an article saying that they weren't forced into it, that they engaged in that work willfully. All right, we won't get into that though. That's another story altogether. All right, that is all for now. We'll discuss this